local celebrities, thank you for tuning in for this segment of the Comeback series. I am your host, Joresa Blount, and I am here with JaSheeka James, writer for the Empire show on Fox. It is the hottest show right now, and we're gonna pick her brain on how she actually got from writing on your own to writing for this really great series. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, who's your favorite character to write for?
I said that my favorite character to write for is Hakeem. And I love that character only because when he first came out, people, they hated him. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, he's, this and that. But I love that, especially in this season, he's kind of showing people, don't underestimate me. There's more here, so, and you'll see, I think we're only on we just had episode 3 air so far, but yeah, he's kind of on a path, and I'm just like, okay, Hakeem, all right, show me something this season, so.
And how is it working with Lee Daniels?
Oh my God.
I know, it's like amazing.
Lee is, he is bombastic. He is one of those people, what I love about him is that he's not afraid to say whatever it is that he wants. And if he wants it, he's going to get it by any means necessary. So the first word that comes to mind when I think about him is bold. And just being on the show, I've been able to, because I've had other experiences before, but watching him, be a black man who is co-created this show and really kind of pushing the limits on where TV is going, and just unapologetically so. It's kind of just great because he's a visionary. So it's this is what I want, this is what I want to see, and as you can see, a lot of people are tuning in because of it.
Absolutely. So I want to just take a couple of steps back, go back to your time in the writing room for Revenge the show. How are you feeling when you were in that writing room?
That was my last season. My last season on the show, my first time being staff. So I was filled with nerves. I was always questioning, in my head, oh, is this good? Am I doing a good job? Am I, but very anxious all the time. And never, when I had to go to work, did I have, a good feeling. And this has nothing to do with any of the people that were in the room, per se. It was a lot of them are friends and still are friends to this day, but it was one of those things where I, was very doubtful, was very insecure, and, just little things that I think if I had proper guidance and management at the time, could have kind of assuaged my concerns and kind of guided me in a different direction. But yeah, it was one of those things where I was just like, ugh. Okay. So when I wasn't asked back, my initial response was oh man, this is awful. But hindsight, I'm able to see now that I was removed from that situation for a reason, because I needed to see that, all rooms and all experiences aren't like this. This isn't the only way. There are different ways. You can be in an environment, have fun, and really be confident and be happy and excited to be at work and be around, people who I just consider family. We just laugh and just have such a great time. So yeah.
How did you know that you were moving into the right direction? Because you had a moment where you were doubting yourself, but then at some moment, what was that defining moment where you knew that you were moving in the right direction?
I would say when I got the script coordinator job on Empire, I was very, very cognizant of the fact that, I'm taking a step back, and I was so concerned about what other people thought, what they, how it looked,
from losing the other job.
Yeah. And I knew that I was headed in the right direction the first day that I got to the job and got into the room. Even when I interviewed with the showrunner, Eileen Chaikin, she was just talking to me about what it was, and in that moment you kind of feel this certain click of excitement.
Yeah.
And I also knew before the show premiered, because I always have this feeling, I'm very calm when it comes to people are nervous because they're concerned about ratings and stuff, and when I have this feeling of this is not that it's gonna be good per se, it's just I don't feel any type of anxiety. I'm like, my nerves are just like smooth sailing. I was like, oh, this show's gonna be a hit. It's gonna be a hit. It's gonna be fine. Like, they're not gonna have anything to worry about. So yeah, that's when I knew. I was like, oh yes, I made the right decision.
Yes. Do you think at any point that you were struggling with people bondage? Because I know that's a thing that people constantly struggle with, especially when you say, you know, you didn't know what people were going to think, what they were going to say. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. I had a big concern because in my head at the time I considered myself a perfectionist per se. So in my head, everything that I did, it had to always be right. It had to always be this. And in my opinion, I was like, oh, well, if I can't keep this job, that means I did something wrong. Like, so I'm not as perfect, you know, as I'm attempting to be, or in my head think that I am. And very much concerned about how it looks, how I look, how people perceive me. And one of the things that I got that was really interesting, my manager at the time told me, he's like, well, one of the things that, you know, your agent said is that, you know, somebody, you know, the word that came up was lazy.
Wow.
And for me, as a Black woman, like, that is the worst thing that anybody could ever say to me. And that word kind of like stung me, like really like it's like if anybody could have stabbed you and like twist and twist and twist constantly. So that took me through a year of, when I was on Empire, my first year, of transition, because I was like, lazy. I'm identified as lazy? Like, what? Like, I have been out here for 11 years. I have always worked very hard for everything. Like, I started off at ABC Studios. I've worked for the presidents of the studios, president of networks. And for that word to be something used to describe me, I just felt like, how dare whoever said that about me. You know what I mean?
How did you break that? Because sometimes when you get labeled by other people as lazy or too loud or too bitchy or whatever it is, how do you separate yourself from that label they're trying to put on you? Yeah.
You continue to work. You continue to do the work and show them. Like I said, when I was script coordinator, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and be script coordinator on this show, but I'm going to be the best damn script coordinator that they have ever had. I often, you know, I tried to overprove that I was working from that, which, again, hindsight now, I realize you should never have to do that. Nobody should ever have to do that, because, again, that was just something used to describe me in that moment, but that's not who I am. Nor have I ever been. So there was no need for me to, all I had to do was just do a good job. I didn't have to like overwork. But I went above and beyond just because I needed to prove to myself, you know, like, you know, screw these people, like, how, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So not only are you in the writing room, but you also have a twin sister that also is in the writing room. How did that come about?
Oh my gosh. So Nika, my sister, JaSheika, we are writing partners. We have been writing partners for a while. I did Revenge. I did that on my own first. But what happened was, when I was in the first season, we applied for the Fox Writers Intensive program. And so we were nominated through my agent, and we applied, and we got accepted as finalists, and that parlayed into us getting the job onto Empire together. So yeah.
How cool is that?
It's so much fun. It's so much fun, because we always knew, we were like, okay, we'll be separated now, but we eventually have to come back together. And it's a great feeling, especially with working with my sister, because I know that we bring out the best in each other and always are pushing for greatness, in a sense. We're extreme. The process is grueling. It's like, you know, we get into zones, but it's our process. A lot of people don't understand it, but it's really fun.
I love it. Do you have any advice for someone who may be in the situation you were in, who may have lost a job, maybe even gone like several months or years without living or working in their purpose? What would you say to that person who may feel like, is it ever going to happen for me?
Oh man, I'm like, yeah, I absolutely have some advice for them. Just to like really never give up. I almost walked away from my purpose. I almost walked away from writing in general because of one experience. And I feel like that's the one thing that people do is like whenever you, whatever it is that you perceive as failure, you look at it as, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. I'll never be able to do whatever it is that was put on my heart. But the reality is a lot of the people that are successful have failed so many times and they just kept going. So if anything, I would just tell them to reflect, pause, reflect, but then continue to move. And again, it's just baby steps, little things that you can do. And always acknowledge too that sometimes you're being guided into a different direction. It's like you think, oh, I have to go this way, but you know, God may be guiding you a different direction for something even bigger and better. So.
And he usually is. He usually is.
Empire, I can attest, Empire has been bigger and better.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to seeing Empire for many, many seasons. I love the show, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Please tune in to our next segment of the Comeback series. Meet me here next Wednesday, where we inspire you to take your setbacks to a comeback.